Another thing that we've been watching out of the United States today is Eliot Spitzer's probe into the insurance industry, something that could be repeated in other sectors. And for more analysis, we're now joined by Dr. Paul Toyne. He's the MD of Article 13. They are specialist advisors on issues of corporate governance. Thanks very, very much for coming in. Nice to see you. I guess the logical answer would be, sure, of course they can move into any sector.
I think so, yes. And I think the issue here is that the world's changed and businesses need to respond. I mean, the expectations on business now are far greater. They're expected to show openness, transparency, accountability. And what underpins that all is ethics, really. So any sector, really, could be investigated for these types of activities.
Let's talk about the European sector as is. I mean, the European space, as it were. What is the reputation of European companies? Pretty good?
Oh, well, of course, it varies. But, I mean, for example, if you look in the UK, there have been a number of interventions made by business and indeed by the regulators that kind of like suggest that the UK is kind of leading the way on corporate governance and the whole issue of corporate social responsibility as well. And in general, in Northern Europe, that seems to be pretty much the case. We would have some questions about the integrity of some of the businesses and companies that are operating in Southern Europe.
Okay, and what would those questions be? Are there other things that you're watching specifically more closely?
Well, in terms of ethics, I mean, we've done some research, say, for example, in the forestry sector, and a lot of timber coming out of Africa is going into Southern Europe, and there's a question mark as to the legality of that trade. So that's just one example.
Okay, and of course, in Europe, we've had our own problems with the likes of Ahold, with the likes of Parmalat, for example. Tell me, in terms of the other sectors, we've been talking about the insurance sector. Are there sectors, you mentioned forestry, are there other sectors that people should be worried about?
I think so, but I mean, you know, this issue is broad. It covers all business sectors, and I think the point here is that who is responsible for the governance issues, you know, in these circumstances. And, you know, I kind of like, we use the words like the ethical compass. You know, the board is responsible. They should have an ethical compass. But you need someone to navigate. You need firm leadership. But you also need to be in a situation where you collect intelligence through your business and whereby staff are actually enabled or empowered to actually identify some of these early warning signals so you can address these issues.
And you don't think that that is the case? And for example, if there are staff in companies, let us suppose in Europe, who do address it, that they are, perhaps their lives are made difficult and the company doesn't want to know, it wants to turn a blind eye maybe? But
I think from, you know, today's story, it shows that actually in terms of reputation, the business should not be turning a blind eye, and the business should actually be putting in place a process, a procedure whereby staff can actually identify some of these issues. They can actually go and speak to someone, and then it can be escalated up to the boardroom level where the issue can be addressed. And that can actually be very, very beneficial. It can, you know, turn a risk into an opportunity. It can be a cost-saving issue. And, you know, you've seen 20% of, you know, some of these businesses of their share value just, you know, wiped off in a day.
Do you think it's just at a corporate level, or should there be more done at not just the regulatory level, but the enforcement level as well, certainly in Europe?
Yes, I think there is more that can be done. But, you know, business would say, look, we don't want more bureaucracy, we don't want more red tape, you know, let us actually take control of the situation. I think there's been a real clear warning signal that's come out of America today, which business in Europe should be looking at and actually thinking, okay, just how can I safeguard against my business, you know, being, you know, turned into the spotlight?
But don't you think maybe some of the European CEOs may give the point that, well, you know what, they think that we have too much red tape anyway, and, you know, we're going to, if we go through and have more laws, more of these kinds of things, they talk about, certainly in the United States, about, you know, it's difficult to do business in Europe. It's not as easy as, say, in the United States, but, you know, if we continue to have more and more of these kinds of beaten down with more red tape, it's just going to make it more difficult. Nobody's going to want to come and do business here.
Well, but you have to ask why the regulators are forced to be thinking about new legislation. And, you know, it's not, you know, because they want to, it's because there's a real reason for it. They're trying to protect investors, consumers, you and me, for example. So, you know, business has a responsibility here, and it depends how it wants to respond. The businesses that are proactive and thinking about being sustainable and a future which is more than just 5 years, but for a long period of time, they will be actually taking note. They will be the ones that will be thinking about how to safeguard and ensure that they address ethical dilemmas that occur within their business.
All right, well, it's a pleasure. Thanks very, very much for joining us, Dr. Paul Toyne. He is the MD of Article